Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to this discussion on audit. So today we plan to cover our next chapter, which will be about audit planning, audit strategy, and audit program. Even though we are starting a new chapter today, but you should consider this more of a continuity in terms of our discussion that we are going to do. Because during the course of our discussion so far, and I'm sure some of you would have understood and you will get more clarity that all of these topics, all of these chapters that you are going to cover, they are quite interlinked. Okay, so as you will progress in terms of more and more topics, more and more concepts, you will also find the interlinkages between all of these things. Okay, so let's quickly try to understand some of the perspectives around this audit plan, audit strategy, audit program. So what this was all about. So now, in a way, you can say that whenever this activity has to be started, okay, so we are talking about this audit activity, and audit, for the purposes of our discussion, we'll keep it as audit of financial statements of any entity. So whenever this activity has to be started, so it's like any other entity for which any activity has to be started. So what is the most important point which everyone would want to do before starting any work, before starting any activity? That will be to plan the work. Okay, so for example, when you are preparing for the exam, yeah, so all of you are here for the examination. When you are preparing for the examination, so do you prepare your plan or not? Tell me, everyone, quickly. Do you prepare your plan? Have you so far prepared your plan? Do you have a time plan or maybe an activity plan? Yes or no? Yeah. So everyone is saying yes. Now, can you tell me why is this plan important? So what if you don't prepare this plan? So why is this plan important? And if let's suppose you don't prepare the plan, what do you think is going to be the consequence, or how is this going to impact you? So Deeptas is saying to achieve success. Okay, Pranav is saying things can go wrong. And Hardik is saying that we can work efficiently. Yes, that's correct. So now, why is planning important? We understand that planning is important because if we plan everything, then we'll know that at what point of time, what is required to be done. So let me just correlate some of these things with your examination plan. So let's suppose you have got various subjects. So what is it that you will plan? So you'll plan that for each and every subject, how many days you will depute. Yeah, so that's the first thing you'll want to do. Second, you would also want to plan that in a particular subject, what are going to be the key areas and what are not going to be the key areas. You can say important and not so important. Yes or no? So you keep asking these questions, that which subject is important, which topic is more important. Yes or no? Yeah. Similarly, you'll also be looking at the time plan, that in respect of the important topics, you would want to devote more time. And in respect of lesser important topics, you would want to devote lesser time. Yeah, so that's the strategy one will follow. Yeah, I think same is the response from Ranjita also. Great. Now, the other point is that when you plan all of these things, so what is your objective? Your objective is to clear the examination. Okay, and in respect of examination, you want to design this complete approach. Similarly, if we talk about any other activity, let's suppose if you plan to go for a trip, okay, and let's suppose it's about 10 persons who are getting together. So you and your friends, okay, so there are 10 friends who are planning for a trip. So what if they get up in the morning and just go for a trip? Do you think that is going to be as successful? They will be able to do all sort of activities in a proper manner as compared to a situation wherein all of these persons would have planned their trip maybe in advance, maybe 2 days in advance, or say 15 days in advance. Which one do you think would have been better? The one which is planned or one which is unplanned? Tell me, which one do you think would have been better? Yeah, Anirudh is saying the planned one. Okay, Venkatesh is saying the planned one. Great. So now we all understand the importance of planning. Correct? Yeah, because if we talk about your examination, if we talk about your trips, for both the things, you understand that planning is important. And this is something which applies to each and every activity. Yes or no? Now, same is the thing which will also apply to an audit activity. Why? Because audit is also a process, or you can say an activity, or you can say a group of activities which is carried out with an objective. What is the objective? To examine the financial statements, to verify the financial statements, and to get to the conclusions that whether these financial statements are free from error or not. Yes or no? Yeah. That's why for doing this, planning is important, or you can say planning is a must. So if this is not planned, then of course we cannot achieve the desired objectives. So this is exactly similar to any other work that is performed. Okay. Now, as regards this planning, this is a very, very simple discussion, or you can say it is as simple as what we have just discussed. Yeah. But still, there are some aspects to this planning, or you can say there are some technical aspects to this planning which we plan to cover in greater detail during the course of our discussions now. Okay. And in respect of this planning, there are few technical things that we'll discuss. Something like audit strategy, developing an audit plan. Okay. And what is eventually desired out of this plan? Of course, that the audit work is performed in an efficient manner. And the timelines, we all understand that every project which is awarded or every project will have a timeline. Okay, so it cannot happen that you start a work and that can go on and on and on for how many days, nobody knows. So that is not possible. So that's why the other objective is to complete the work in a timely manner. Okay, so both the objectives are required to be achieved. So we'll just now try to understand as to what is it that will form part of planning. And of course, when it comes to the planning, what all things are required to be captured therein. All right. So now, as regards this planning and as regards this audit process, or you can say this audit journey, let us just try to get some more insights. Okay, so now what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to break this entire audit process into few stages, okay, for the purposes of our discussion. So we can say broadly that audit can be segregated into 4 stages. So first stage is of course the planning. Okay, so when you are planning a lot of things or timelines and various other things which you understand. Okay, and once the things are planned, what is going to be the next step? Can you tell me? So let's suppose if you have planned the work, what is going to be the next set of activity after planning? What is it that you will want to do? Yeah, Venkatesh says implementation. Krishna says execution. Yes, great. So you can just use different terms to that, but I'm just going to use this next term, which is about execution. Okay, so once the work is planned, then what is going to be the next step? Execution. Execution means, let's suppose you have planned that the revenue I'll check for 5 days. PPE, okay, this person will check. Okay, let's suppose other expenses, you will perform limited procedures. So all sort of these things, when you start doing this, when you go to the client place, okay, when you start inquiries with the company, when you start discussions, when you start checking the documents, what do you call it as? This is something which you call as execution. Yeah. Once this execution is completed, can you tell me what is going to be the next step? Over to you quickly. Once this execution is completed, what is going to be the next step? Over to you quickly. Great. Pranav is saying reviews. All right. Opinion. Kasak says compatibility. Okay. Bhargavi is saying follow up. Satish is saying outcome. Yes. Afzal says report. Great. So once this execution is completed, means the work is performed. What is going to be the next step? Conclusions. Okay. So for example, revenue is checked. Okay. Say additions of the items which have been purchased during the year, purchases which are made during the year, all those areas have been checked, those have been verified. Then what will happen? Once you check something, you will conclude that each and every area which is checked, whether that is okay or not. Yeah. Or maybe there are some errors in that or not. Yes or no? Aradhana says review and report. Of course, yes. Once this conclusion is done, what is going to be the next step? The report. Or you can say reporting. Reporting means the final outcome. Because we have discussed that once the work is completed, auditor is required to give the report. The report, which you also called as audit report. Remember, we called it as audit report. Yeah. Now, broadly, these are the 4 stages for the purposes of performance of this entire audit. And this is something which you are going to cover in respect of various chapters. Okay. So your entire audit subject will be discussion about all these 4 stages. So I'm just trying to maybe summarize your entire subject into these 4 stages. Okay. Or you can say that once you cover all of these 4 stages in detail, your audit subject will get completed. Understood? Yeah. So this is what audit is all about. Now, in these 4 stages, now I have a question for you. Can we say that planning and execution are not interlinked to each other? Tell me quickly. Can we say that they will not go hand in hand? They are not linked to each other? Vijay Lakshmi is saying, yes, sir, they are interlinked. Sudip is saying, yes. Yeah, Asi is saying they are interlinked. All right. So let me just link these two. So if you say these are interlinked, let me just link these two. Okay. Now tell me one more thing. Can we say that execution and conclusion are not interlinked? Tell me. Preeti says yes, these are interlinked. Mohammed says yes, these are interlinked. I think same is the response from Yashashwini is also. Yeah, Karthik is also saying yes, they are interlinked. Great. Okay, so if you are saying these are interlinked, so I'll also link these two. And similarly, we can also say that reporting and conclusions are also interlinked. Yes or no? I think same is the understanding from Asta, Joya, Amit, Aisha. Yeah. So these two are also interlinked in such a manner. Correct? Yeah. Will that be appropriate? Yes or no? Okay. And similarly, these two will also be interlinked. Now, this is the most important part of the audit which you need to understand. Okay. And that is what I have been discussing. In fact, when we started off in our first chapter, and when I started off today, I told you that all of these things are interlinked to each other. So can you now understand that why do I say all of these things are interlinked? Or why all of your chapters which are going to follow, they are all interlinked? Can you now understand that? Yeah. Now, in respect of planning, there's one thought process. Let's try to also understand about planning. Say, for example, you are planning for your exams. Okay. Now, let me just give this situation up because this is something with which you can exactly relate to. Okay. Say, for example, you have planned for your exams. Yeah. You have planned for your exams. And what is your plan? So, you are planning that you got 2 subjects, say, for example, accounts, audit. I'm not talking about other subjects. I'm just keeping that for an example. Let's suppose you planned that you will take 25 days to prepare this. You will take 25 days to prepare this. Okay. And you planned that maybe by say 31st of October, you will be done with this. Okay. Let's suppose this was the plan. So what was the plan? Initially, you will draw this plan. Yes or no? Initially, you will draw this plan. Okay, you may be thinking, but sir, my plan is different. No worries. Huh? Let me just take this example. Let's suppose initially you prepared this plan. Okay, wherein your target was what? To wrap up these two subjects by 31st of October. So this was the plan. This was the plan. Okay, but now let's suppose today we are on 19th. Say we are standing on 19th of September. All right. Let's suppose you understand that no, audit is something which is going to take lesser time. And say there's one more subject which is going to take more time. Or maybe you lost few days. Why? Because you were not well, or maybe you were required to visit some place. Okay, maybe some activity came in which you didn't expect earlier. Okay, which was sort of unexpected. Does it happen or not? Yes or no? So a lot of times you will prepare a plan, but it may not go exactly the way you have thought upon. Does it really happen? Tell me quickly. I think everyone will agree to this. Yes or no? Yeah. Now, on 19th of September, now, when you understand that your plan as around these two subjects of 31st October will not be achieved. Okay, you will not be able to wrap it up. If you go the same way, let's suppose if you go with this 25 plus 25 days plan, then you will not be able to complete this. So tell me, in such a case, what will you do? Tell me, in such a case, what will you do? Yes, quickly, over to you. Hardik is saying, I'll reduce the time. Okay, yeah. Sai is saying, we'll have to revise the plan. Sanjeev is saying, we'll have to revise the plan. Exactly. So that means, initially when you planned your work, let me just say that this was the date when you planned your work. Okay. So this was the date when you planned your work. And this was the period of your execution. So what was the period of your execution? This was the period of your execution. Now, can we just simply say that once our plan is prepared, that will remain frozen? Can our plan be so rigid? Or should we say that our plan has to be flexible? It has to be a continuous planning. So every day, some changes may be required in our planning. Why? Because it's something which is going to be evolving. So with a lot of things which may come up, with the new events, with the new activities, with the uncertainty which is attached to this, there are few things which may come up, which may require changes to our plan. Will it be appropriate to say that or not? Yes? Yes or no? If you don't do that, then what will happen? Our objective will not be achieved. If we don't do that, our objective, of course, will not be achieved. Yes or no? Now, the same approach is something which you are required to consider in respect of audit as well. So can you now understand this meaning of audit planning? Quickly, can you now understand the meaning? Can you now appreciate this understanding of audit planning? Yeah? Yeah? Because if you can just relate to this, to any other work, you will be able to immediately understand this concept. So there are few things we have just tried to understand over here. Okay, let me just put down those points for the purposes of our discussion. One, planning is extremely important. Yes or no? Planning is extremely important. Number two, planning is not something which you'll do on day one and forget. Okay, so it's not something which you'll say that this is going to be my plan and this will remain frozen. No, definitely you will want to achieve that, but you have to be conscious in respect of various developments which may happen during the course of execution. During the course of execution. At the time of conclusion, you will have to be thinking about your plan. Why? Because let's suppose initially you planned that the company is good. Okay, financial statements you thought are going to be sort of, carrying lesser errors. But now what do you find? There are a lot of errors in the financial statements. Every area you check, what do you find? It's full of errors. So that's why the conclusions that you draw, what is going to happen to that? You are finding a lot of errors. So that's why you may have to revisit your plan. How will you revisit your plan? You may want to increase your procedures. You may want to increase the extent of your testing. Yes or no? Yeah. So now our second point is that planning is a continuous process, and planning is something which is ever evolving. So this is not something which will come to an end at one point of time. So this has to be a continuous process always. Understood? Everyone clear on this? Yeah. So this was broadly about planning. Any questions, any doubts if you have so far? Quickly. Any questions, any doubts if you have? No? Everyone clear on this? Okay, Hardik is saying, sir, can you please tell planning point 1? So what do you mean by planning point 1? Where do you pick this point number 1 from? Planning keeps on changing. That is what Krishna says. Great. I understand Vinita has a question. Yes, Vinita, please ask your query.
Sir, can you explain once execution?
Sorry, what do you want to understand?
Sir, execution once explain, sir.
Yeah, sure. So execution is all about performance of the activities which you have planned. For example, say you planned that you will go and check revenue. Okay. Let's say, for example, you planned that you will go and verify expenses. Let's suppose your plan was that you will go and check the sales invoices. Okay. So this checking or this working that you execute, okay, that you perform, that is what you call as execution. You can also say applying the procedures. That is what you call as execution. Clear? Yeah. Okay, so Muskan is asking, sir, is it better to have alternate plans ready? Yes, of course. So whenever you will plan, see, at the time of your planning, you will have to give yourself some leverage. For example, say if I come back to this discussion on your 2 subjects, when you were planning for their preparation. So when you will assess that you will take 25 days, so therein you will definitely take some margin. Yes or no? Yes or no? So every time whenever you will plan this, so you would be thinking that, okay, it should take me 23 days to prepare, but let's keep a margin of 2 days. Why? Because some work may come in, maybe I'm not well, or maybe unforeseen event takes place, so I may lose out on a couple of days. So that's how you will plan. Okay, or you can say that's how you'll keep up your backup, or that's how you'll give yourself a provision in respect of making sure that the plan goes through. So of course, all of these things are also considered at the time of planning. Okay. Ranjita is asking, sir, real scenario planning went wrong. What to do? Of course, see, it's not something which will not happen. At a lot of times, the planning may go wrong. Maybe something that you expected is not happening. Then what will you do? You will revise your plan. As simple as that. You will revise your plan. Do you have any other choice? The answer is no. So every time your plan is not going through, you are not getting through that, what is it that you will have to do? You will have to get on to the backup, or you can say you have to get on to the revision of that plan. All right. I think Satish has a question. Yes, Satish. Yes, Satish, you have a question?
Sir,
Yes, Satish, please go ahead.
increasing procedures means choosing alternative procedures. Huh?
See, increasing procedures may mean not choosing alternate procedures at every point of time. It may be by checking more. Say, for example,
Okay.
there is a population of 100 items. Okay.
Okay.
So there is a population of 100 items. Yeah. So let's suppose this is the population. Now, in this population, few samples you have tested. Okay. And initially you thought that, this population, or maybe this is the sales ledger. Okay. This is the sales ledger. So you are expected that company is good, their management is good, they are also doing accounting in an appropriate manner. So that's why it should be free from errors. But what do you find after you're checking? There are a lot of errors. So initially, what did you do? You picked up 10 samples. Why? Because that was your comfort level. But when you will find errors, so will your comfort level go down or not? Tell me, will your comfort level go down? Tell me, yes or no? Satish, you are there?
Yes.
Yeah. So in such a case, will you want to do more checking?
Yes.
Will you want to increase the sample size or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no? Yeah. So
Yes,
that
yes.
is what you call as increasing
More.
the extent of testing, or you can say increasing the procedures. Now that will again depend on area which you are choosing. Okay. This was only an illustration for the purposes of our discussion. Understood?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay, great. Then Aradhana is asking, sir, can we say margin is also a part of plan to give the buffer time? Yes, of course. Then I think Gondi is asking difference between audit planning and audit strategy. See, we are yet to cover all of these things. Huh? I've just started off. So we are yet to discuss audit strategy, audit planning, audit program. We'll discuss that. Okay. We have just started off as to about a basic understanding of what audit plan is all about. All right. So now let's move further. Let's try to understand some of the aspects around this audit planning. Now, I believe that the benefits of the audit planning are quite clear to us. So what could be the benefit? As we discussed, our attention to important areas. This is something which is required. If we plan, then we will be able to identify and resolve the potential problems. Why? Because we'll know that these are the key areas. These are the important areas wherein we need to spend more time. Correct? Our audit process will be efficient, will be effective. Okay. Another thing, when it comes to an audit, so now let's suppose audit of financial statements of a company are required to be performed. So can just one person go and perform the audit? Tell me, what are your thoughts? Is it possible for one person to just go and perform the audit? Tell me. Sanjeev is saying no. Yeah, Bhavya says no. So in such a case, a team is required. Let's suppose there's a CFA wherein 40 persons are working. So how do you select those persons out of those 50 who will go and audit this financial statement? Again, depending on the skill set, depending on their knowledge level. Yes or no? Depending on their availability also. And what do you call it as? That is again a part of your audit planning. Audit planning, correct? When you will plan the work, then you will know that who will carry out the work and who will check the work. Because when a person will go and check the client information, then the senior member of the audit team will also review that work or not. Yeah. So that system also needs to be established. So how is that possible? Only through planning, direction, and supervision of the team members. Their work which they are doing, their review, that is possible audit through audit. Okay. Coordination with other auditors and experts. Now, what do you mean by this? Let's suppose there is a company wherein 3 auditors are involved. Okay, let's suppose there are 3 auditors. In case of PSUs, public sector companies, 3 or 4 auditors are engaged for audit of one financial statements. Okay, in case of banks, for example, one auditor is not there. It's a joint audit, means one financial statement is audited by 2-3 firms. So in such a case, 2 auditors need to coordinate with each other. Why? Because they are moving towards the same objective. Similarly, it may happen that the auditor is engaging an expert. Now, what do you mean by an expert? Now, tell me one thing, that let's suppose if you are the auditor of a company and say it's a bank. Now, today, can the banks work on a manual system? Tell me, can the banks work on a manual system? Mohit says no. Diksha says no. Okay, in fact, they are working in a very, very sophisticated IT environment. Yes or no? So do you think they have their old books in hard copies wherein all of these ledgers are written, vouchers are created, accounting entries are passed manually? No. These are all based through IT systems. So in such a case, if the auditor is auditing the financial statements of such a bank, he will also need an IT expert who can understand those IT systems. Only then the audit can be performed. Yes or no? So that's why auditor may also require some experts similar to this. And all of these involvement of the experts, all of these other personnel, all of the team members, where does it come from? It all comes from the planning. So if the planning is not there, all of these objectives cannot be achieved. Yeah. So you can say these objectives are extremely important. All right. So I can see this query coming from Srinivasan. He's asking, sir, planning and audit of financial statements is SA 300, right? If you could mention SA for each important topic would be nice. Yes, sure. So that's why we have this SA. So if you look at this, okay, so we have specified that this is SA 300. All right. Yeah. Clear, Srinivasan? Great. All right. So then I think, okay, so Ranjita was just responding that knowledge and skills in these fields, yeah, all of these things are therefore important to be considered. Now, Mohit has a query. Mohit is asking, sir, is the entire team involved in the audit plan or just the partners? See, when it comes to the planning, entire team has to be involved. Why? Because each and every personnel will have a role to play. So if only one person will be involved in the planning, or if you, let's suppose, say only the seniors are involved in the planning, but the juniors don't get to know as to, what is required to be done. So will you call it as a planning? Tell me, will you consider that to be a plan? The answer is no. Answer is no. Correct. So that's why when it comes to the planning, all the team members are involved in the planning exercise. Only then the planning can be considered to be efficient and effective. If that is not done, then definitely the planning is not proper. Okay. Clear? All right. So moving further. Now, as around this planning, I think we have just discussed about this, that this planning has to be a continuous process. Yeah, though we are going to discuss about this in more detail as we move further. So let's now try to understand some of the elements which are there in respect of planning. Okay. Now, for the purposes of our discussion, we'll just break this planning again into two parts. One, that is about preliminary engagement activities. Second, those activities which are related to planning, but which are done after the preliminary engagement activities. So you can say after this, it will follow. Yeah, so these are the two stages of planning, we can say, or you can say two elements of planning that we are going to discuss. All right. So now let's talk about the first element of planning, preliminary engagement activities. Now, what do you mean by preliminary engagement activities? See, this is about that stage when the work has not yet started. In fact, this is that stage when the auditor is yet to decide whether he will audit the financial statements of a particular entity or not. Okay, we'll pick up some examples to discuss this, wherein some of the elements which become important are acceptance, or you can say continuance of the client, ethical requirements, understanding the terms of the engagement. So let's try to discuss all of these points one by one. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just pick up some examples to discuss this. All right, so let's suppose there is a company ABC Limited. Yeah, now ABC Limited wants to get its financial statements audited. All right, so its financial statements are required to be audited. Now, ABC Limited has reached out to a CA firm. Say, for example, this CA firm is PQR and Company. Okay, so they have reached out to this firm. Yeah. Now, for PQR and Company, when ABC Limited has reached out, so why did ABC reach out to PQR? Because ABC is requesting that PQR please audit my financial statements. Okay. So that's how auditor is also going to be appointed. Remember, we discussed this. Okay. So now, in this case, PQR has not yet accepted this engagement. So tell me, what are the thought process, or what are the thoughts, what are the considerations which PQR should have before starting this audit or before accepting this audit? Over to you, quickly. Yes. What are the considerations? Krishna says company background. Okay. Sanjeev is saying conflict of interest. Very good. Diksha, I think, says understanding of the business. Great. Dilip says legal history. Very good. Then I think Bhavya is saying company size needs to be looked at. Very good. Arshdeep says conflict of interest. Yeah. Then I think background of the company. Muskan says background checks, understanding of their work. Okay. Pranav is saying nature of business needs to be understood. Vaishnavi says integrity of the management. Great. KMP background is what Anuj says. Yes. So there are few points we have discussed. What are those points? That before PQR will accept this engagement, what is it that the PQR will do? PQR will ensure that whether this company should be audited or not. Why? Because when PQR will accept the engagement, so it's an engagement. Okay, so PQR will get into a relationship with this company. What is going to be the relationship between company and PQR? What is going to be the relationship between the company and PQR? That will be that of the auditor and auditee. Auditor and client. Yes or no? Yeah. Or you can say a consultant and the client, whichever way you want to call it. So now, before you get into a relationship, yeah. So let's suppose if you pick up any project, if you get into any relationship, would you want to check whether that person, whether that entity is appropriate or not? Yes or no? So how do you check that? Of course, PQR will look at the KMPs of ABC. Who are the KMPs? Directors. Yeah, their background checking. Their background checking. Yeah, all of these things will be required or not? Yes. Other point, PQR will also check whether PQR is eligible to perform this engagement or not. So how do you check that? PQR will check his independence requirements. PQR will check his ethical requirements. Remember, auditor has to be independent always. Yes or no? Auditor has to be independent always. Only if the auditor is independent, he can perform the audit, otherwise not. Now, in this case, has PQR started the audit? The answer is no. Has PQR started the audit planning? The answer is no. So what do you call this stage as? This is the preliminary engagement stage. Means when the audit is getting accepted, or you can say the stage of acceptance of the audit. Stage when the audit is getting accepted or when its acceptance is getting evaluated. Yes or no? Now, if ABC Limited is not a new company, okay, and let's suppose prior to PQR, say XYZ and company was auditing the financial statements of ABC. XYZ and company was auditing the financial statements of ABC. Now, when the auditor will get changed, so what is it that PQR needs to do? PQR needs to reach out to XYZ also. Why? Because that's the requirement of ethics. That reach out to the previous auditor, which is also called as predecessor auditor. Reach out to the previous auditor and ask him whether I should accept this engagement or not. And XYZ should also confirm this, should respond to PQR. Yeah, so this communication with the previous auditor has to take place. This communication with the previous auditor has to take place. And all of these things, in a way, what do you call it as? This is also a part of planning only. This is also a part of planning only. But this planning is something which is happening at the preliminary level, wherein the audit has not really started, wherein the discussions are still going on as regards the acceptance of the engagement. Okay, clear on this? Everyone, any questions around this? Over to you. Any questions if you have around this? Tell me. Okay, Rashmi is asking, and why or what reason? Yes, so I think Rashmi is just trying to explain that when the auditor, means PQR, will reach out to the predecessor auditor, he will ask him that why did you resign? Okay, what's the reason? Yeah, whether there were some problems. So if you remember, there are a lot of things in the news. So if you stay updated, so very recently, did you hear that in respect of Byju's, their auditors resigned? In respect of Byju's, their auditors resigned. Yes or no? Yeah. When the auditors resigned, they will specify the reason. They will specify the reason as to why did they resign. Correct? Now, when the new auditor will come in, so he will have to evaluate that or not. Let's suppose if the new auditor just simply walks in. Why? Because he has been appointed by the management. Will that be appropriate? The answer is no. Why? Because that will be considered to be lack of planning. That will be considered to be lack of planning. So can you now understand? All of these are so practical. Huh? Yeah. So Byju's, are you all aware of this? So it was very recently in the news also that their auditors have resigned. Yeah. So I think everyone knows about this. Yes or no? Yeah. So now for the new auditor, of course, the new auditor will be appointed. But what are going to be the responsibilities as far as the planning is concerned? Of course, their responsibility will be around the integrity check, around the independence check, around the communication with the previous auditor, around the evaluation of all of those matters which exist with the company, whether he believes that he should pick up this project or not. Why? Because audit is nothing but a project in a way. Understood? Understood, everyone? Yes. Any questions so far? Okay, VR is asking, sir, what is this integrity check? Integrity check is all about these things, huh? Wherein you get on to the background checking of the directors. Okay, you find out whether the company has got some such problems which because of which you should not be picking up that engagement. Okay, so all of these factors that you evaluate. So this is what you call as integrity check. So integrity means integrity of the management, integrity of the personnel who are involved in respect of their top management particularly, okay, which is all about KMPs that you try to evaluate. Okay, so then I think this question comes from Gerald. He is asking that, sir, in real scenarios, will any new auditors reach out to the auditors? See, in real scenario, it is a necessity and it happens. Okay, it's a must. Why? Because when you will read ethics, I understand that's also a part of your course curriculum. Okay, when you will read that, you will find out that it's a must for a new auditor. Okay, in this case, for this new auditor to accept the engagement, it can only happen when he gets the consent from the previous auditor. And this happens if that is not provided, if that is not obtained, then what will happen? It will be considered to be unethical on the part of the new auditor. Understood? All right. So Amit is asking, sir, is there any provision to get the kind of number of objections from the previous auditor by the current? Yes, as I told you, it comes from the requirements of ethics, which you are going to study in later sessions. Huh? That also form parts of your discussion. Okay. As of now, you can just say that it's a part of ethical requirements and which is mandatory for a chartered accountant. Yeah. Then I think Muskan has a question. Muskan is asking, sir, the new auditor audits the books again, which were already checked? No. So let's try to understand this aspect as well. Okay. So now what is going to happen? Say there was a company which has been in existence for so many years. Now let's suppose up to 31st of March 2024. XYZ was auditing the financial statements. Yeah, so up to 31st March, who audited? XYZ. Now, when PQR walks in, so PQR is not appointed for the previous years. PQR is appointed for the financial year which is going to follow. That means for 31st March 2025, or you can say financial year 24-25 and subsequent years. Okay, so that's why the financial statements that PQR is going to pick up will be for the years that are going to follow. The years which are already audited, he'll not reopen that. Otherwise, that will keep happening. So company will just keep getting the audit done, yeah, for a lot many years, because it's not going to be limited to only 1 year. Understood, Muskan? Okay, so then I think Goda has a query. He's asking, sir, if previous auditor doesn't reply, then what should PQR do? Then he will have to send a reminder. He will have to again send the reminder. Okay. So eventually, company may also have to request the old auditor to communicate, okay, to provide the response. And it doesn't happen. So maybe after 2-3 reminders, that's the maximum, because it's a common thing. It's something which happens very, very commonly. So every chartered accountant, every auditor knows that this is something which is required to be given. Okay. So it will not happen that the old auditor will not respond at all. So of course the response will come. All right. Yeah. Any more questions? Rachna is asking, sir, is the consent mandatory? Yes. Then VR is asking, but the auditor must see if all the errors in the previous financial years are rectified, right, sir? Yes. Yes, we'll talk about it. As we move further, we'll talk about the audit procedures also. Sanjeev is asking, sir, if the previous auditor resigns in between the audit, see, it doesn't matter whether he is resigning in between the audit or after conclusion of audit, it doesn't matter. The point is, when the new auditor walks in, what is going to be the planning activity on the part of the new auditor? Yeah. So that stage may come at any point of time. What we are required to do is something is in relation to the preliminary engagement activities. So now whether that happens during the course of financial year, once the audit is completed, or maybe the audit is going on, the previous auditor has resigned, he has not completed, new auditor walks in. In both the cases, new auditor will have to perform the similar sort of procedures. Okay. Okay, then Sai is asking, sir, what impact on the audit report and the shareholders? Nothing, because this is only planning. So all of those things will come later on, once the audit will be completed. Tambeshwari is asking, sir, what's the reason as to why auditor may resign? See, one, there's a time frame for every auditor, okay, which Companies Act mandates. So let's suppose that time frame is over. Second, maybe the auditor is occupied with a lot of activities. He doesn't want to continue with this company. Yeah, so there could be various reasons for that. Vidushi is asking, sir, what if the auditor resigns and only part year statements are audited? So as I told you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether the auditor has resigned in between, he has not completed, okay, or whether the conclusion is there and then the new auditor walks in. Though ethically, again, it's something which the new auditor will have to take care, which he has to look into. But as I told you, and please also understand that for an auditor to walk out in between the audit is again not possible, because he will also have to have the reasons. Okay, if there are any problems, he'll have to complete his work. If he finds some problem, he will have to just complete, report, and then walk out. It's not something that he'll just drop it in between and he'll just walk out. So that is again something which is not permissible. Okay, yeah. So then I think this query comes from Hardik. Hardik is asking, sir, in case of completion of term of old auditor, even then the new auditor has to take the consent? Yes. See, everywhere, whether the consent is in any stage, when the new auditor is coming in, he has to obtain the consent of the old auditor in any stage. Understood? Okay, then Joy is asking, sir, if the previous auditor did not resign, but the management has changed the auditor. Okay, maybe for the financial year. Still they have to acquire? Yes. I think I told you. So there could be various reasons because of which all auditor has moved out. Please try to understand that for a new auditor to come in, yeah, as we discussed, that for this new auditor to come in, he will have to communicate with the previous auditor. So you may just bring in hundreds of situations. The answer will always remain the same. So let's not try to bring in a lot of situations. That is not going to impact this because new auditor has to obtain the consent for sure. All right. Yeah. Then I think this query comes from VP, Vinuta. So she's asking, sir, the new auditor will verify and findings, all information. Yes, yes. All of those things will form part of audit procedures. We'll discuss that. Then Sojani is saying, sir, if the auditor has some issues with the management, he may give some adverse report. So that is okay. So of course, that will again depend on the conclusions he has drawn. Okay. See, you also need to understand that auditor is a professional. Okay. So let's not try to be childish. Auditor is a professional. He is expected to be following the ethics. He is a man of principles. He is considered to be a person with principles. To say that auditor is angry with the management and that's why he'll just, put adverse things in the report, that is not justified. Okay. So we are talking about a professional behavior here. Okay. So let's ignore all of those things that you have in your mind. So that doesn't happen practically. Yeah? So he will have some problems. He may want to resign. He may not want to continue. But the conclusions that he'll draw will be based on the procedures. If based on his procedures, he has found everything to be all right, then how can he report adverse things? Because tomorrow he may have to answer that. What will be the basis of doing that? Okay. If he's picked up, if he's caught, then he will be penalized for this. Okay. Yeah. Then I think Dishika has a question. Sir, if the previous audit reports are unfavorable and having impact on the current year, then the auditor will see the previous lackings? Yes, of course. See, all of these things are going to form part of our planning activities. Okay. Currently, we are only talking about this preliminary stage. But when we'll discuss more about this planning, we'll discuss some of these aspects as well. Okay. All right. So now moving further onto this preliminary stage itself. Now let's suppose this company. Okay. So we are talking about this company again. So I'm just continuing on this ABC and PQR. For this company ABC and PQR. Now PQR is the audit firm. Now let's suppose if the PQR accepts the engagement. If PQR accepts the engagement. Or there could be another situation that PQR has been auditing the financial statements of ABC. Say last year PQR audited the financial statement for 23-24. PQR audited the financial statements. Now for 24-25, whether to continue or not is again something that PQR will have to assess. And what will be the basis of that assessment? Same basis. All of these factors he'll have to reconsider. Okay. If let's suppose it's an acceptance of a new client. Why? Because for a new client, there will be an acceptance. And for an old client, or you can say an existing client, it will be a continuance. Continuance, why? Because it's an old client. It's an existing client. In both the cases, the terms of engagement have to be discussed. Terms of engagement have to be discussed. And what will become the basis of this discussion? Can you tell me? We discussed about this in our previous sessions. What will be the basis of these terms between the company, between the entity and the auditor? Tell me. Mohit is saying scope of audit. Very good. So we can say scope of work. Yeah. So for this purpose, both these ABC and PQR will enter into an agreement. Remember, we discussed they will enter into an agreement. And what do you call that agreement as? Quickly, over to you. What do you call that agreement as? Technically, what is the terminology that you use for that agreement? Yes, over to you quickly. Engagement letter. Very good. So that is technically termed as engagement letter. In this engagement letter, scope is defined. Means what is it that PQR is required to do? What fees he'll charge? What are going to be the responsibilities of management of ABC? What are going to be the responsibilities of audit firm PQR? For which year financial statements are required to be audited? All of these things, what do you call it as? Terms of engagement. Okay, so now this is again important. So before the audit work is started, this engagement term has to be decided. This engagement term has to be decided. And what will become the basis for doing that? By entering into an agreement, which you call as engagement letter. Which you call as engagement letter. Okay. Yeah. Clear? So now let's discuss one case scenario on the basis of this. Yeah. So now everyone, if you have understood, let's discuss one case scenario. All right. So, okay. VR says yes, clear. Very good. So we'll discuss one case scenario now. Quickly. Ready, everyone? All right. Great. So now, say for example, there is a company. Say this company is Joya and Limited. Sorry, Joya Limited. Okay, this is the company. Fine. This company has got two directors, J and P. Okay, these are the two directors. So this is director 1. This is director 2. Yeah, and let's suppose there are other directors as well. So we are currently talking about these two directors. Okay. Now, as regards P, okay, this director, there was some news. Okay, so there was some news recently in the newspaper. So what was the news? That some case has been initiated, some criminal proceedings. Okay, criminal case. So you can say proceedings are going on. Proceedings are going on. Okay, and P happens to be the working director for this company. P happens to be the working director for this company. Okay. Now, they have a firm of audit. You can say that is ABC and Company. ABC and Company is the audit firm. And ABC and Company has been auditing this company for last 4 years. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so they have been auditing this company for last 4 years. Now, for this 5th year, audit is not yet started. Engagement letter is already signed. Why? Because that was signed for 5 years initially. Okay. Now, in this case, as regards ABC, so we are talking about ABC right now. As regards ABC, fine. As regards ABC, what do you think are the considerations for continuing this engagement for the 5th year? So what are the considerations which ABC should have for continuing this engagement for 5th year? Before you move to your solution, before you start sharing your responses, let me just quickly give you some insights that, of course, you will just give some reasons. Please try to elaborate that. Maybe please try to cover as many points as possible. So we are not doing an MCQ here. I'm just asking you to explain that as regards this situation, what is it that ABC will have to consider for the purposes of continuance? And you may also say that no, nothing is required to be considered. There again, you need to explain why no consideration will be required by ABC. Okay, clear on this question, everyone? Yes, over to your responses. Please don't be in a hurry to answer. Please try to elaborate this. Okay, Sai Charan is saying issue associated with P director. Okay, issues on the company and the auditor. So now what do you mean by this? Then Pranav is saying progress of the criminal case proceedings, nature of the business over the previous years. Okay. Sanjeev is saying auditors should find out more about the case and whether it has got any relation with the company. No, relation is of course there. Why? Because he is the working director. He is the working director. So of course he is related to the company. So to find out the relation, of course, this is quite clear. Rashmi is saying because P is in proceeding. So what do you mean? So I think you are not just trying to elaborate. Maybe you are in a hurry to answer. Please elaborate as much as possible. Mohit is saying ABC needs to consider the changing background, changes in the background, ethical requirements. Very good. Hasi is saying impact on the company of such proceedings. Okay. Sanjeev is saying, I mean, whether its operations are impacted by the case. Sure. Rachana is saying if the case will affect the goodwill of the company and the auditor. All right. Yes. What about others? Okay. Then Ranjita is saying KMP personnel, ethical requirements. Okay. Then Amit is saying ABC would not go for continuance of the engagement as the adverse situation arises, which is associated with the directors. Okay. Then Venkatesh is saying should not reflect this criminal proceeding on the public image. If the public image goes down, the profits will reduce. Okay. Then Hardik is saying auditor will find the background of P and accordingly take the decision. And if he finds that he is involved in proceedings, then he shall resign because it affects his integrity. Okay. Engagement term. So Tambeshwari is saying no, sir, the engagement term is not completed. So that's why the audit has to continue. All right. Then what about others? I can see this response from Amit. I think Amit has answered this. Maybe Asta's response is not clear as to, what are you trying to say? Rati Malani is saying inquiries will be required. Consultations from some members of the team will be required. Again, very, very good. Asta is saying thorough observation and making inquiries. Yes, exactly. Now, in this case, let's try to understand this situation. See, this is the situation wherein the auditor knows the company. Yes or no? Auditor knows this company. Why? Because auditor is already associated with this company for last 4 years. As far as their financial statements are concerned, their management is concerned, their directors are KMP, all of these are concerned, auditor knows them. Auditor also notes the financial situation of the company. All of these factors are known to the auditor. But still, Because this engagement has to be repeated. Why? Because audit is not completed for 5 years in one go or 4 years in one go. Every year audit has to be performed. Every year audit report is required to be issued. So that's why auditor will have to repeat all of these things. What are those things? Background checking, his independence requirements. Okay, he'll have to evaluate that in the previous financial statements, whether there were some errors, whether those have been taken care of or not. If those were not taken care of, whether those were reported appropriately. What are the consequences of all of these things on the company? Where the management is improving as far as the financial statements are concerned. Further, as regards this recent news, okay, wherein one of the directors of the company is involved, in a criminal proceeding. Of course, this will also have a bearing on his continuance, because he may want to get into this, because he may want to evaluate this. Can we just simply say that because this was in the news, so that's why the auditor has to resign immediately? Again, no. See, the auditor will have to make inquiries. Auditor will have to get into the discussions with the management, with the KMP. They will have to understand the matter. They will have to understand this particular scenario. They will also have to understand the implication of this matter. Not only on the company, but also on the audit procedures, on the audit process, as to how this is going to impact the audit. Understood? Once all of these things are done, accordingly, auditor will take a call whether he should continue or not continue. Clear on this? Yeah. So if you have a thought process, but sir, what do we say? That auditor should continue? Yes or no? So there's no answer of yes or no over here. It's all about evaluation. Understood? It's all about evaluation. That evaluation is a must. Yeah. Let's suppose even if I say that these problems were not there. Let's suppose if we remove this. Yeah. Still, will you say that all of these things are required to be checked by the auditor or not? Tell me. If let's suppose we take out this, even then all of those procedures, all of these things will be carried out by the auditor or not? Yes. Yeah. That's what everyone says. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Max says yes. Manvi says yes. Very good. Yeah. Understood. Yeah. So this was all about the preliminary activities, or you can say the stage of the audit in a way, but wherein the audit work has not yet started, wherein the auditor is still in the process of either accepting or deciding whether to continue and finalizing the terms of his engagement. Terms of his engagement includes all of these aspects, which is all about looking into the scope, looking into various things which were there in the previous year, looking into the KMP, all of these aspects. Okay, clear on this, everyone? All right, so now before we move to the next stage, which is about the planning activities, over to your questions. Any questions, any doubts that you may have? Let's talk about those and then we'll move further. Okay, I understand Venkatesh has a question. Yes, Venkatesh. Yes, Venkatesh, please go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, Venkatesh.
Can you hear me, sir?
Venkatesh, you're not audible.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, my question is planning, sir.
You have to be a bit louder, please. Your voice is very low, Venkatesh.
Sir, my question is around planning of audit.
Okay, planning of audit. So what's the question?
Sir, if the execution of an audit is not going on the right path, we need to revise our plan, right?
Venkatesh, I can't hear you. I would appreciate if you can just type it and I'll read that. Yeah, because
Okay,
very difficult
okay,
to hear. Huh?
Okay.
Maybe in the meantime, I'll just pick up the next query. Yes, Mohammed, please go ahead with your query.
Sir, if he is a individual person He has a personal issues with the criminal. The company is in other. What is interlink between the company and the P person?
Or find out. So let's try to understand that if let's suppose you want to work with a company, forget about audit. So let's suppose there's a company who wants to appoint you. Okay, they want to award you some project. They want to get on some working with you. But you understand that one of their directors who is running the company is a criminal. So would you like to get associated with that company?
No.
Why? Because the integrity of the management is something which is getting impacted. Yes or no? Yeah. So
Yes, sir.
same is the rationale which the auditor needs to consider. So we are not saying that he'll not perform the audit. No, we are saying that he will have to evaluate this situation. He will have to evaluate this situation and accordingly take the decision. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Then I understand Hardik has a query. Yes, Hardik?
Sir, I have a query relating to the planning benefits.
Planning
Sir, one
benefits.
small
Okay.
yes,
Yes.
sir, small query. Sir, you said that there was a point in a planning benefit that coordination with other auditors and experts.
Right.
So, sir, there was an example of PSUs and banks audit. So, sir,
Correct.
in case of a PSU audit, usually the auditor are matlab, uh, like they are taken up by the CAG. CAG appoints those auditors.
Right.
So, sir, auditor in case of a joint audit, both the auditors of different firm or a same firm will be appointed in by the CAG.
No, so you can say that 3 audit firms are appointed, and that's why those are called as 3 auditors. And when we
Sir,
say coordination,
different firm.
yes, different
firms will
firms.
be there.
Yes,
Okay.
different firms. So I'm saying 3 different audit firms are appointed. So that's how generally auditors are appointed in respect of PSUs or the banks. Okay, one auditor is not appointed for them. Generally, that is
Okay.
what you see. Okay,
Okay,
so
sir.
that's why, because there are 3 firms, or let's suppose more than 2 firms, more than 1 firm. So that's why their coordination is important. Yeah, because eventually
sir.
they will have to audit the set of financial statements. So that's how it works. Fine.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. So I understand. Aisha is asking, sir, company and directors are different persons, so it will not affect audit. Continuation will happen. No, so you cannot say that because company is run by the directors. Yes or no? So no. So you can't say that those are not related. They are definitely linked to each other. So it's very difficult to say that. Huh? Then I think Tambeshwari is asking, sir, every year this background check, etc., is required? Yes, of course. Every year it has to take place. Then Kasak is asking, sir, is the engagement letter renewed after the engagement period is over? Yes, that's how it works. Venkatesh is asking, sir, planning is going on expected, so we may need to revise the plan by increasing. So will it not go beyond the scope? See, we need to plan it, but within the purview of our scope. So we are not saying that we'll just keep increasing to the limit which will go beyond the scope. No, that's not the thought process. Huh? Okay, Venkatesh. Then Vibor is saying, sir, what is the maximum time for which one auditor can audit the financial statements? That again varies depending on the type of auditor. If it's a partnership firm, then they can have this 2 tenure of 5 years. But if it's a sole proprietor, then they can have this 1 tenure of 5 years. So that's how it works. Okay. Pallavi is asking, sir, audit firm itself needs to be audited? Yes, of course. So when you say itself means the audit firm will audit the financial statements of the company. Yes. But in case of audit firm, you need to understand that people will be involved. Okay. So when it comes to the audit firm will have partners who will be appointed, or you can say who will be designated to get onto this work. So that's how it works. Okay. Yeah. So I think we can take a break now, maybe quick break of 5-10 minutes. And I also understand that I've got a few queries. So let me just pick up this query, but in the meantime, you can just maybe just move out. Huh? So it's a quick break. So Mohit has a question. Yes, Mohit. Yes, Mohit, please go ahead. Yes, Sai has a question. Yes, Sai. Sai, please go ahead with your question. No? All right. So fine. Yes, yes, Mohit.
Sir, may I?
Yes, please go ahead with your query.
Sir, audit applicability is a critical concept for the companies in India and impacting the various aspects of their operations. Why should the proceeding person is eligible to audit?
So what do
I
you
think
mean
he
by
must not be.
proceeding person is eligible to audit? So what do you mean by this?
Sir, just like he is a proceeding person, a case is on his head, and he also engaged in auditing with his collaborating company.
No, so see, let's try to understand this aspect very clearly. Yeah? So we are just talking about a company wherein there are directors. Okay. And for this company, the auditor is appointed who is required to audit the financial statements of the company. Now, against a director, some of the proceedings may be going on. So it may be a civil case, it may be a criminal case, and it's something which is very, very common. Huh? You get to see quite a lot some of these things in respect of various companies. Okay, so it's not something which is uncommon as far as directors are concerned. Now, we are not talking about an auditor against whom some criminal proceeding is going on or some proceeding is going on, and he has been appointed to audit the financial statements. No, we are saying that auditor is all right. He's clean as far as all of these things are concerned. But the company which he is going to audit has got one director against whom some of these things are going on. And it's in the news. So we don't even know whether that is correct or not correct. Okay, it's in the news. So the question is that should that be evaluated by the auditor or not? Okay, so that's the question. Maybe if that is evaluated, so the thought process of the auditor could be no, that the things are fine. Yeah, many a times it could be there in the news, but it may not be having anything which can impact the audit process. Because what is it that the auditor needs to look at? He needs to look at whether the audit process can be carried out in a smooth manner or not. Yeah, that's the objective. Understood?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Sir, this is
Yes,
Karan.
sign.
Sir, as we know that auditor conducts assurance engagement on behalf of shareholders to produce report.
Right.
Report. If such scenario happens, if an auditor resigns and a new auditor need to be appointed, does any consultation should be given in appointing an auditor to the shareholders? Any consultations from the shareholders? Whom to appoint, or is completely a management decisions?
See, the auditor is appointed by the board of directors. One. And there's a detailed process around it, and which is then approved by the shareholders, okay, in the AGM. So that's how this process broadly works. Now, as far as this appointment of auditor is concerned, so again, a company will not just go and pick up any auditor. Company will also check the competence of the auditor. So they will also evaluate various audit firms which are there, whether those are competent to audit the financial statements of the company or not. Okay, a lot of these factors. So it is exactly similar to picking up any other vendor. So let's suppose tomorrow, let's say for example, say you want to avail some services. So now when you want to avail some services, so will you just reach out to anybody in respect of those services? Tell me. You'll
No.
just check as to know which person is giving you the best service. Yes or no? So you'll evaluate a lot of service providers and then you will pick up one out of that. So that's how this system works. So same goes with the audit, because audit is also a service thing. It's a service which is provided by the audit. Fine.
Sir, another one, sir. And the recent
Yes.
times, I was been if you are being an auditor appointed by CAG to audit the SEBI financial statements, or audit the authoritative body, how could be this be dealt, sir?
See there again, so it's again the same thing. See, all of these things are there in the news. Okay, whether that is right or wrong, that will be taken care of by the appropriate authority. Yeah. What is the role of the auditor? Is the auditor regulator who is going to regulate all of those activities? The answer is no. What is the role of the auditor? To check the financial statements. So auditor needs to evaluate whether this role which he is going to play, whether though that is going to get impacted because of this or not. If he believes no, this is not going to get impacted, then he'll work in a diligent manner, complete his work, and get the reporting done. And that's how this is sort of completed. Understood? Because that role and responsibility doesn't lie with the auditor. That lies with somebody else. Okay. So
Okay,
I
sir.
think you're just trying to maybe, sort of mix up some of these things. Don't get confused with that. Clear on this?
Clear, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sure. All right.
Hello,
So
sir.
yes.
Sir, while appointing a new auditor, can there is requirement of consent of old auditor?
Yes. So see, whenever the new auditor will walk in, so before he walks in, he will reach out to the previous auditor. Okay. And he will communicate with him. Why? Because that's the mandatory requirement. He will have to communicate with him. And the previous auditor will have to respond to him. That's again a mandate. So it's a mandatory requirement. See, both of them are chartered accountants. So let's suppose you are a chartered accountant and there is another chartered accountant. When you know that there is a mandate which both of you are required to follow. So will you follow that or not? Tell me.
Yes, sir.
You'll do that? Yes. So same goes with the auditor. And same will go with the previous auditor. So when he'll receive the communication from the new auditor, he'll respond. Okay, and that's how it practically works also. Understood?
Yes, sir. Sir,
Or,
when an auditor continue for 3 or 4 years, in such a case, then no need for every time of consent of old auditor.
no, so only the new auditor will obtain the consent. And the time when he walks in, when he'll continue, that time he's not the new auditor. He has become an existing auditor.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. All right. So if you are done, I think we can now continue. And I believe that your break is also over. So let's continue now. All right. So moving further. So we discussed about these preliminary engagement activities. Now, once this is completed, the next set of activities will be about our plan. Okay, wherein the auditor will actually get on to planning the things. Now, auditor has accepted the engagement, or maybe he has decided to continue. He has also decided the terms with the management. As far as statutory audit is concerned, these are quite clear. Okay, this scope is quite clear. Why? Because this comes from the statutory requirements. Now, once that preliminary stage is gone, then comes the second stage, which is all about planning the various activities. So now this second stage again can be divided into two parts. Okay, this again, for the purposes of our discussion, what we will do is we'll again divide this into two parts. In the first part, what do we say? That auditor will establish the audit strategy. And then he'll also be developing the detailed audit plan. So let's now try to understand, what do you mean by audit strategy? See, audit strategy is all about setting up scope, timing, direction of the audit, thereby setting the stage for a detailed audit plan, which is decided by the auditor. Now, what do you mean by scope? So in terms of scope, the auditor will decide that in the financial statements, what are going to be the key areas? What is going to be the timing? Now, what do you mean by timing? That in respect of important areas, what is the time that he will want to devote? Okay. Then in respect of lot of areas, who is going to perform what activity? Let's suppose there's a team of 8 persons who will be involved in the audit activity. Then who will pick up which area? And then who will review the work of that person? Now, all of these things, which is all about scope, timing, direction, they will set as a guide, or you can say that will set up the audit planning. Okay, so let's now try to look at some of these things which are important as far as audit strategy is concerned. One, as we discussed, resources to deploy. What do you mean by resources? Means how many persons are required. So we discussed that for this particular engagement, let's suppose 8 persons are required. Now, out of 8 persons, if there are some high risk areas, so let's suppose inventory valuation is a high risk area. Okay. Or let's suppose the taxation of this company is quite complex. Okay. Wherein tax experts will be required. Taxation of this company is quite complex. So therein tax experts are required. So who is going to be involved in that work? Let's suppose out of 8, 2 persons will be deputed on inventory valuation. Why? That's a high risk area. And one tax expert will also be involved in this. Okay. Similarly, for various other areas, for various other activities, the deployment, the decision, who is going to do what, means amount of resources, when these resources will be deployed, what all activities they will do, how they will be managed, means who is going to be the leader of those persons, means out of 8 persons, who is going to be the leader. Okay. And who all will be the reviewer. So let's suppose out of 8, say 2 are seniors. So means 6 persons will check the work, and then 2 persons will review the work of these 6 persons. Now, all of these things which are decided, that forms part of audit strategy. Okay. Now, as around this audit strategy, let's try to look into some of the key factors. One, as we discussed, scope of the engagement has to be decided. Now, the scope has to be looked at on the basis of objectives of the engagement. So now, why the scope will be decided or assessed? Because there is some objective. So the auditor would want to look at that objective, means what are the ways through which that objective can be achieved. Okay. Then of course, we talked about the team personnel who will be deputed on that. And at the time of finalizing this audit strategy, some of the considerations, some of the outcomes which the auditor may have obtained during the preliminary engagement activities will also be required to be looked at. And the auditor will have to decide the timing and extent of resources which will be required on the engagement. So let's now pick up one example. Okay. And with the help of this example, we'll just try to design the strategy. Okay. So say there is a company ABC. Again, yeah, so it's a company. Now this company is being audited by the auditor for last 2 years. So first year was audited, second year was audited, and now we are talking about third year of audit. Okay, so this is the year for which audit is required to take place. Now who is the auditor? Let's suppose we have PQR as the auditor. So PQR is the auditor. Now, as far as this audit strategy for third year is concerned, What are the considerations which the audit firm will look into? So now, for this, first thing which the auditor will have to look into will be the size of the company. So let's suppose we say that ABC has a turnover of 500 crore. Okay, so that's the turnover of the company. And let's suppose they have got few locations. Okay, so they have gone corporate office and they have also got 3 plants. Okay, so all located at different places. So there are 4 locations effectively. Fine. So there are 4 locations. Now, what is going to be the next consideration? Timeline. Now, what is going to be the timeline? Now, the management wants this audit to be completed within a maximum period of 30 days. So 30 days is the maximum that will be allowed. Yeah. Now, all of these factors, when you consider as an auditor, then what will you decide? The first thing, can you tell me what is it that will come to your mind for deciding the audit strategy? Now, some of these things I've explained. So can you tell me what is it that you will look at? What is the first thing that you will look at? Over to you quickly. Hardik is saying scope of audit. Scope we know. So how can you say scope of audit? So Baswanganda is saying number of people. Mohit is saying resources. Very good. Yes, that's the first thing you will have to look at. Why? Because when this audit is required to be completed within a period of 30 days, can one person go and audit this? The answer is no. So what is going to be the first consideration? What is going to be the first consideration? Number of resources. That is going to be the first consideration. Okay. And if the audit firm decides that all of these locations, so how many locations do we have? Can you tell me over where teams are required to be deputed? Rishita says 4. Very good. Pallavi says 4. Yeah. So if there are 4 locations and if at 4 locations teams are required to be deputed, so what is the number of minimum persons this audit team will require? Can you tell me? What is going to be the minimum number? Yes, Parvez says 4. Yes. So at least 4 persons will be required. Yeah. But generally for one location, 2 persons will at least be sent. Yes or no? 2 persons will at least be sent. So we can say that for 3 plants, 2 persons will be sent. Means 6 will be sent to these 3 plants. And let's suppose for corporate office, so a lot of working will be required, coordination, consolidation, etc. will be required. So 3 persons are deputed over here. Okay. Now these 9 persons, they are going to be involved in day-to-day working. They will be discussion with the management. There will be checking the documents. They will be checking the vouchers. They will be checking the agreements. They will be reading the documents. They will be verifying the invoices. All of these things they will do. Yes or no? So at least one senior person has to be there in the team. One senior person has to be there in the team. Yes or no? So if we say that these 6 plus 3 are going to be involved in day-to-day activities, so there has to be one senior person who will coordinate the work of all of these persons. Yeah. So we can say yes. So one senior person, let's depute that. Let's depute one senior person. Okay. And as far as the working of all of these 9 persons is concerned, this senior person will also be involved in the review. Review means checking of work of these 9 persons. Review doesn't mean review of client's financial statements. No, we are saying review of what these 9 persons will do. Yeah. Yes or no? Yes or no? Okay. Now, let's suppose this company is involved in manufacturing. Say the nature of business of this company is what? manufacturing. Now, in respect of this manufacturing industry, how will these 9 persons be chosen? How will this senior person be chosen? And then there will be one audit partner. How will that audit partner be chosen? All of these factors, what do you call it as? Audit strategy. That is what you call as audit strategy. Yes or no? That is what you call as audit strategy. Further, as regards this audit strategy, in respect of this company, some of the critical areas will have to be decided. Yeah. So when the financial statements are going to be audited, so what are going to be the critical areas? What are going to be the critical areas in the financial statements? So let's suppose it's been assessed that inventory valuation is one area. Okay, revenue recognition, let's suppose, is another area. Okay, or let's suppose they have got some taxation issues. So taxation is another area. Taxation is another area. Now, all of these factors will have to be looked at by the audit firm. Yes or no? All of these factors will have to be looked at by the audit firm. And accordingly, what will they do? They will depute persons for all of these areas. Why? Because they will have to focus on these areas. These are going to be the areas over which focus is required, over which extent of checking is going to be more, where the risk is going to be more as compared to other areas. Understood? Understood? Yeah. So all of these factors will have to be looked into. All of these factors will have to be decided. Clear? Now, another thing. Let's suppose in the previous years, so now we are talking about these 2 years. Let's suppose in the previous years, in year 1 and year 2, we find that company has got 3 plants. So let's suppose plant 1, plant 2, plant 3. Okay, and the 4th one is corporate office. Let's suppose it's the experience of the audit team that the client personnel at plant 2, okay, they are not very cooperative. They don't cooperate. Why? Because they take a lot of time to prepare the information. The details that the auditor will ask for, they take time to provide that. And there are also competency issues. Means they are not very competent as far as the financial information is concerned which they prepare. And that's why, what do you observe? It's been observed in the previous years that audit of this information, okay, audit of financial information at this particular location is quite challenging. This is quite challenging. It has got a lot of errors. It also takes time. So in such a case, will the auditor take this into consideration or not? Tell me. So should this be considered or not by the auditor while designing the audit strategy? While designing the audit strategy, Niveta says yes. Rishita is saying yes. What about others? Yes or no? So should that be considered? And accordingly, tell me one more thing. Should the auditor also allocate the appropriate staff for all of these locations or not? Yeah. So the persons who are there in the audit team who have dealt with this particular team of the client in the past years will be most suitable to go there again. Why? Because they know as to how to deal with them. They know what are the challenges, what are the problems. Yes or no? So that's how this resource allocation, this resource deputation will have to be done. All of these things that we have discussed so far, what do you call it as? That is something which you call as audit strategy. That is something which you call as audit strategy. Okay, everyone clear on the meaning of audit strategy, on some of these aspects that you consider? Yeah. Why is this audit strategy required to be looked at? Why is this strategy required to be designed? And tell me one thing, okay, because I'm sure a lot of you are going to have this question. Is this audit strategy a part of audit planning or not? Over to you. What do you think? This audit strategy that we have just discussed, will you call it as a part of audit planning or not? Neha says yes. Yeah. Okay. Angel says yes. Yeah. So of course, this audit strategy is nothing but a part of audit planning. Why? Because all of these factors, all of these activities that we have been doing as an auditor, what is that? That is a working towards the end objective. End objective is what? To conclude the audit and to draw the conclusions once that is completed, on the basis of which reporting will be done. Understood? Clear on this? Yeah. Any questions, any doubts if you have? Yes, any questions, any doubts if you have? Yes, over to you. Any questions, any doubts? Quickly, please. No? No questions? All right, so let's pick up one more case scenario. Okay, so let's suppose we are talking about another company. Okay, now you need to answer this. Okay. Okay, Tambeshwari has a question. Before I get on to this, Tambeshwari is saying, sir, why do we need audit strategy? Because all of these factors. We need audit strategy because if you don't plan your resources, if you don't look into your resources, if you don't decide the critical areas, if you don't consider the factors which are going to have an impact on the audit, if you don't consider those areas which are going to be critical, then what will happen? Will you be able to design your audit procedures? Will you be able to design your time plan? Will you be able to carry out your audit procedures in an appropriate manner? Tell me, Tambeshwari. Tell me, will you be able to do that? Quickly, will you be able to do that? No. So that's why it's required. Understood? Mohit is asking, sir, if the management is involved in audit plan, would it not compromise the objective of audit? Why? See, audit is an activity wherein both the parties have to work together, company as well as the auditor. How can the auditor complete the audit without the involvement of the company? So if the management will not provide the details, provide the workings, respond to the queries of the auditor, will not support in respect of his audit procedures. See, support means what? Support means getting this activity completed. And for whom this activity is required to be performed? That is meant for the company only. Yes or no? This activity is being done for the company only. So if the company will not support, if the company will not be associated with the auditor, how can the audit get completed? That's why the support of the management is extremely important. Understood? Yeah. All right. Any more questions if you have? Okay. So Ritika is saying, sir, I need a clarification. Yes. So she's asking, sir, you told about plant 2 that they are not cooperative was for whom? See, that was for the auditor. Okay, so in the last 2 years, when the audit was going on, auditors observed that the employees of this second plant, they were not cooperating with the auditors. So when the auditor will go ask for the details, so they will not provide on time. They don't understand that auditors are bound by time. So is it a time bound activity or not? So if you go back to our example, okay, you will find that there was a time plan. You remember there was a time plan. Yes or no? Yeah, so there was a time plan. This time was 30 days. So if the management doesn't support, do you believe this activity can be completed within time? Yeah, great. So she has understood. Very good. All right. So any more questions? No? All right. So now let me just pick up one more case scenario. Okay, which you need to answer. Huh? Okay. So let's say there is a company. Say it's okay. And this company, let's suppose, is in the business of trading of furniture. So that's the nature of business. Okay. And its sales, let's suppose, is rupees 50 crore. And say it has got a finance team wherein only 2 persons are involved. Okay, finance team means the team which is doing the accounting and all of these things. Okay, and of course there are a lot of other teams. Sales team is there, marketing team is there, procurement team, all of those teams are also there. HR, etc. is all there. Fine. So it's ABC Private Limited. Now, in respect of this company, the auditor is appointed. A new auditor is appointed. Yeah. So let's suppose this new auditor has been picked up and now he's getting appointed. Yeah. So let's suppose Sai and Company has been newly appointed. Fine. So they are the new auditors. They are the new auditors for this company. Okay. Now the question for you, for this new auditor Sai and Company, for which this financial statements for 24-25 will be performed. Okay, so this year is going to follow. It's been going on. For which audit is required to be performed. What are the considerations? What are the things? What are the points which Sai and Company need to look into? Yeah. Yes, over to you. What are those things which Sai and Company need to look into as far as this audit of financial statements for this particular year is concerned? Over to you. Quickly. Quickly. Yes. Okay, so Amar says previous auditor. So I think you need to give me the sentence, please. Words will not be sufficient. I'll not be able to understand your point. Okay, Tambeshwari is saying audit strategy. So you need to elaborate. What do you mean by audit strategy? Okay, Lata says that first of all, they will have to communicate with the old auditor. Very good. Niveta says that management background checking. That sort of evaluation, you need to elaborate. Rishita is saying engagement relationship, ethical requirements. I think you're just talking about broadly, but you're not elaborating all of those points. I want you to elaborate or maybe to be very, very specific. When you say preliminary engagement activity, So what all things will be required to be done by the new auditor? That is what I want you to answer. Okay, Uday says make a planning for the audit. What does it mean? So what do you mean by planning? What all things he'll have to consider? That is what you need to tell me. Okay, of course, planning is something he'll need, but what is it that is going to form part of planning? Okay, so Fatima is saying go through the previous audit report. Very good. Yes, that's the relevant point. Meg says ethical requirements will have to be looked into. Background checking of the KMP. Then I think Vaishnavi is saying audit strategy should be made to set out the broad direction. So what will that include? Okay, so then Deepdas is saying KMP background check. Okay, great. So I think first set of activities which some of you are trying to explain is all about the preliminary engagement activities. Yes or no? Yeah. So let me just try to write down some of the points you have shared. So one, you are saying preliminary engagement activities. Wherein, what is it that this new auditor will do? This new auditor will communicate with the previous auditor. So we can say communication with the previous auditor. Okay, background checking, etc. Yes. So background checking, etc. he'll do. Okay, independence requirements he will evaluate. Okay, which is all about getting into all of those ethical requirements. Yeah. Then what else should form part of this? Amit says timing, background, track record, procedures to deploy. Very good. Yes. So now, other than that, there will also be the engagement letter, which will be defining the scope of work, timelines, fees, all of those things will come in. Yes. And then, of course, this audit strategy will come into picture. Yeah, so this audit strategy will have to be decided. So what do you include in this audit strategy? What do you include in this audit strategy? Quickly. What will form part of audit strategy? Great. Vaishnavi says resource allocation. Means the number. When and where those will be allocated. Yeah. Scope, timing, direction. That is what Pranav says. Great. Then Baswagonda is saying important areas means in respect of this audit, what are the critical areas? What are the important areas? Kasak says who is going to manage that team? Avinash is saying whether any expert will be required or not. Yeah. Deployment of work. Angel says timeline will have to be looked into. Ratimalani is saying who is going to be the senior person on the team. Yeah. So all of those factors. Now what are those factors? Timeline, scope, okay, resources. Now in respect of resources, a lot of things means how many persons are required, their competence level, whether they are competent to do this work or not. Yeah. Who will review the work? So the senior staff, team management, all of these factors are required to be looked into. On that basis, this strategy will be worked out. This strategy will be decided. Okay. I'm just hoping everyone is clear now. Okay. So then Santya is saying audit strategy includes choosing the right person for the right job, which means choosing the right person on all the major factors that the auditors want to be in contact with the concerned person and the senior person. Rati Malani is saying check if any location needs specific allotment. Of course. Yeah. So it's not only about staff, but it's also about looking into all of those factors. Yeah. Of course, auditor will also go through the audit report of the previous years to find out if there were some points, if there was some things, there were few things which were reported over there, which the auditor needs to take care. Yeah. So audit report of previous year, he will go through that. And similarly, various other points that will all form part of strategy of the auditor. Okay. Yeah. So this was all about audit strategy. Now moving further, let's now move on to the next stage, wherein we'll get on to the development of the audit plan. Now please remember that our planning is continuing. So even though we have been, bringing in new and new terms, but all of these things are moving in the same direction. Now, what do you mean by development of audit plan? See, some of the factors as around the planning we have looked at. Now, some more factors are required to be decided or finalized on the basis of audit strategy that we have. Now, at one place, we are saying that audit strategy is nothing but a part of audit plan. So now you may have a question. Then if audit strategy is already a part of an audit plan, and audit plan is something that we have been doing, okay, which has been going on, then what is this development of audit plan? Or how is this really different from some of those things that we have discussed? So that's where you need to understand that now we are just moving further. Okay, we are moving further in respect of our planning work. So now on the basis of strategy that is decided, what is going to happen? Auditor will now decide his audit procedures. And for deciding the audit procedures, another very, very important area which the auditor needs to perform, very, very important activity, happens to be the understanding of the entity. So what do you mean by understanding of the entity? Understanding of the business? It means that auditor will obtain understanding of the business of the company which is required to be audited. He will obtain an understanding of the industry in which that particular company operates. Say for example, it's a pharma company. Okay. Now for pharma, auditor needs to have the knowledge of the industry, means what all things are going on in that industry. Because let's suppose if the pharma sector is going through a bad phase, because of which the operations are going down, profitability has been going down. That's what the sector indicates during the year. But for the auditee, for the company which is under audit, if the auditor finds that their turnover is going up, their profitability is going up, so is that going in line with the industry trend? Is that going in line with the industry trend? Tell me, do you find that to be in line with the industry trend? Sai says no. What about others? Pranav says no. What about others? Quickly, huh? Quickly, Hasi says no. Okay, Hardik is saying no. Yeah, clearly it's a no. Yeah. So in such a case, what will happen? Auditor will get some insights about the business, because he will get to know about it. That if the industry is going through a bad phase, what is it that the management has been doing, because of which their operations are performing in a good manner as compared to the industry, which is possible, which can happen, but the auditor will have to get a deep dive into it. And how is that possible? Only and only when he will understand the company, he will understand the business, he will understand the industry. Now, let's try to understand that what do you mean by understanding of this company? Now, this is again a very, very important area as far as any audit is concerned. Now, in relation to understanding of the business, Broadly, we can say understanding is all about understanding of the nature of business. Now, to understand the nature of business, what is it that the auditor can do? Can you tell me? What is it that the auditor can do? Quickly. Quickly, what are the things that the auditor can do to understand the business? Over to you. So let's suppose if you are the auditor, you want to know about the company, know about their business. What are the things that you would want to perform? Quickly. Okay, Mohit says management discussions. Kasak says go through the financial statements. Okay, Parvez is saying industry check. Okay, great. What about others? Anirudh is saying talk to the management, read all reports, read about the sector. Very good. So Ritika is saying talk with the management. Yeah, so first and foremost will be all about discussions or the inquiries. Yeah, so it's all about discussions or inquiries with the management. If the auditor is a continuing auditor, then you also go through the previous year's files, on the basis of which the team can get an understanding. Now, there are two possibilities over here. Maybe the old team, exact old team is continuing. Say last year, 6 persons were there on the team and same 6 persons are repeating the audit for the current year. So they know everything about the company. So as far as last year files are concerned, they may be knowing about it. But if there are some new developments which have taken place at the client end, in the industry, in the business, do they still need to know about it? Tell me, should the auditor still get to know about it or not? Yeah? Yes. So if there are any developments during the year, those are also required to be looked into. Another thing. Now, this business is a broad term. And we have discussed that, okay, let's go inquire with the management. Let's have questions to, let's put across questions to the management. Now, as far as this business is concerned, we can say that this business is again broken into some processes. For a company, what can be various processes? We can say sales is one process, procurement or purchase is another process. Similarly, payroll is another process. Yeah. Similarly, we can say taxation could be another process. Yeah. And depending on the type of company that we deal with, various processes may exist in the company. Now the auditor needs to obtain an understanding of all of those processes. Why? Because only and only when he will get into the understanding of all of those processes, he will get an understanding of the business. Because business doesn't mean that you just go and have a chat with the management for 5 minutes and it's done. No, it's all about getting into this detailed understanding of various processes which are there with the company. And till the time you don't understand that, will you be able to audit? Tell me. So if let's suppose you don't understand your client, you don't understand the company, you don't understand their processes, you don't understand their transactions, you don't understand the nature of their contracts, you don't understand the nature of parties with which they have been dealing with, can you just audit them? The answer is no. Why? Why? Because audit is all about checking what the management is supposed to do. And if you are not aware of what the management is supposed to do, how can you go and check them? So let's suppose if you are required to say audit procurement or purchases, how will you design your audit procedures? What will you go and check? Will you know about it? No. So will you just pull out a ledger? The answer is no, because if you don't understand the ledger, what is there in the ledger, what will you check? What will you ask for? Will you just go and ask for invoice for each and everything? Tell me one thing, that for payroll, can you go and ask the management that provide me the invoices? Tell me, for payroll, can you go and ask the management to give me the invoices for the payroll expense? Tell me. If you say no, Mohit says no, can you tell me why? Why? Because as far as this activity is concerned, there are no invoices. Yeah. Payroll, what does it mean? It means that the salaries and various other compensation expenses which are recognized by the company, for which invoices are not there. So let's suppose if a person from the audit team goes and asks for something which is not applicable or which is not relevant, then what will happen? Client will understand as if the auditor doesn't know anything about it. Yeah, which is not appropriate. So that's why the first and foremost activity as far as the audit is concerned happens to be the understanding of the client business. Okay. Now, as around this, I think we can just also look at maybe few documents. Just give me a minute. Okay, just give me a minute. We can just try to look at some of the documents through which you can just try to get some clarity, as to how does this audit plan really looks like. So I can just try to open one audit plan. Okay, just give me a minute. All right, so let's look at this document. I think with this document, you should get some clarity. Okay, so you can say that this is how an audit plan may look like. Now, please understand that as far as an audit plan or this document is concerned, there's no structured format in place. Okay, to say that this is going to be the format always, the answer is no. This is not going to be the format always. But yes, to a certain extent, you can get a feeler. Now, how will this audit document really look like? So let's suppose you have this company AXL Limited. Okay, so you are auditing. So what is going to be involved? So you'll write the period, that for which period this audit is going to take place. Then you will name the team members, who is going to be the engagement partner, who is going to be the audit manager, okay, who are going to be the other audit team members. So all of those persons you will specify. Okay, then you will put down various activities. Some of those activities would be critical, some of those activities would be not so critical. Okay, so these are going to be your various activities. So you'll put down what all activities are required to be done. Then you will put down who is going to be the person responsible. Person responsible means key person. So we can say that this audit manager, is the person responsible, let's suppose, for these 4 activities. Yeah. Then you will depute team. Team means who is going to check, who is going to be involved in that particular activity as far as that checking is concerned. Then you will put down the timeline. So it can be man days, it can be man hours, again, depending on as to, how that thing is required to be done. So you'll put the time frame. Say, for example, if you are checking, let's suppose you are planning to prepare for audit. So what will you do? You will say, okay, every Tuesday, Thursday, we have got this class. Okay, so you are deputing this much time. After that, you will be deputing some time for revisions. Okay, so that's how you will plan your time. So this is all about planning the time. Then you will also specify as to, what type of activity is this. So whether it's an interim audit or final audit, again, this is going to vary depending on the time of audit. Then you will also put down the timeline. So over here, when you are putting the time, so it's all about number of days or number of hours. Then you are putting a deadline to this, that when will this team, okay, when will this team complete this work? So this is the timeline which has been set. Okay, so this team is supposed to complete this work by this date. And then this responsible person, okay, so this responsible person, he is supposed to review this work by this date. Yeah, it could be the same day or it could be maybe after a gap of some days. So that's how this audit plan is generally structured. Understood? So can you get a feeler of how this audit plan will really be structured? Yeah. So I've just tried to pull out this kind of actual audit plan, but let me just once again tell you that please don't think that this is going to be the format always. Huh? See, for example, if you are preparing your time plan, let's suppose, everyone is preparing a time plan. Do you have any time plan format which has been prepared by ICAI, or maybe do you come across any such format which has to be strictly used by you? The answer is no. Any format you can prepare. Yeah, that is again, idea is to support you as far as your audit work is concerned or your planning is concerned. Now, is there any necessity that this format has to be in soft or hard? Again, the answer is no. For example, you look at this is an Excel file. But is it necessary to be in Excel file? No, you can keep it in PPT, you can keep it in Word file, or you can keep it on a piece of paper. Again, that's the documentation. So there is no such mandate as far as the planning is concerned. The whole idea is that this is how some of the things are practically done by the companies. Okay, clear on this? So I understand Hardik has a question. Yes, Hardik? Yes, Hardik. Any other questions, any other doubts in the meantime? Okay, so Mohit has a question. Mohit is asking, sir, does the audit team consist only of qualified CS or articles are also involved? So again, it depends on engagement to engagement, but generally it's a mixture. Generally it's a mixture. Okay. Generally it's a mixture. So both of them are generally involved. Yeah. You will find both the things. So I think Hardik has a question. Yes, Hardik. Okay, so maybe let me just see. Manish, if you can just unmute Hardik or maybe the other participants, so that they can also put across their questions if they want to speak. Yes.
Sir,
Yes, Hardik.
sir, can you please tell who is an engaging partner? Who
See,
the science or
engaging.
terms of engagement?
Yeah, so it's the engagement partner. Engagement partner is nothing but the audit partner. Okay, one who is
Okay,
going to
sir.
sign the financial statements and the audit report. So that's the engagement.
And sir, partner and engaging partner are the same or they are different person?
See, that again depends on engagement to engagement, size of the engagement. At times, what may happen is, let's suppose there is a professional firm.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me just come back to this point. Just give me. Okay, let's suppose there's a professional firm, P and company, and let's suppose they've got 9 partners. Okay, now they have got few engagements which are quite complex, which are quite big as far as the size of the company is concerned. So let me just pick up one company, say they have got TLD Company Limited. Yeah. So let's say it's a listed company. and the size is quite big, and that's why the firm wants that over and above one audit partner, they will also want to depute one more partner. So partner means it's a senior person. Okay, so one audit partner will be there. So there will be one audit partner who will sign the audit report. Other than that, one more partner will be there who will support the audit partner. So he will be more of like a senior person who is there on the audit. Okay, so that's how
And sir,
this may work.
And sir, these both these persons should be compulsory a chartered accountant.
See, the person who is signing the audit report has to be a chartered accountant. Okay, so this person who is signing the audit report has to be a chartered accountant.
Then
Other
sir,
than
the
that,
partner is
there can be chartered accountant and non-chartered accountants also.
and the partner who is supporting him should be also a CA.
See, when it comes to a professional firm, generally chartered accountants are there, but again, there could be non-CAs also. For example, say in this firm of 9 partners, there's
Yes,
one
sir.
partner who is IT specialist. There's one partner who is tech specialist, but he is not a
Okay, sir.
chartered accountant. Okay, so he can be a partner. Why? Because he has been
Okay, sir.
designated as a partner by the firm.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so it's more of a designation. Why? Because for us, the audit partner is the one who is going to sign the audit.
So he is an expert. We can say he's an expert.
Not necessarily an expert. So he can be an expert or he can be an audit expert also, who is more of a supporting partner. Means who is providing the support to the audit partner. So he can be a chartered accountant also.
Okay.
So it works both ways, huh? And you get to see this quite a lot. So in case of large engagements, when it comes to companies, for example, if you talk about companies like Airtel, companies like Vodafone, okay, if you talk about companies like Tata Group or Reliance, okay, so these are generally in case of these audits, generally more than one partners are involved by the professional firms. Okay, because
Okay,
these are
sir.
very complex and size is too big. So one audit partner to handle that completely is not possible. So that's why many partners are engaged. In fact, it's not only 2, many partners are engaged.
Okay, sir.
Okay. All right. So what we can do is maybe I can just come to your queries now. So we can just conclude our discussion. Please remember that we are not yet done on this topic. So we are yet to complete this chapter, which we plan to cover in the next session. But yes, I understand you'll have questions, queries. So I can just come over to your questions, queries now. So the remaining time will just spend on your questions and doubts. Yeah. So thanks once again, everyone. Those who want to just more, they can just feel free. So thanks everyone for your time and once again for your wonderful participation. But some of those who just want to remain, stick around, they can just continue, please. Okay, so I understand Saeed has a question. Yes, Saeed. Yes, Saeed.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yes.
Sir, you have told that a company have a 9 partners. The partner who is signing the audit report, he should be CA. In case there are 2 audit firms who are engaged to audit a company, so it is mandatory that the both firms should sign the audit report.
Of course, see, if there are 2 audit firms who are appointed as the auditors, which is a case of joint audit, then in such a case, both the firms will require to sign that. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. So I understand Bhargavi has a question. Bhargavi is saying, sir, can you please explain who is the engaging? See, engagement partner, you can say, is the partner who will sign the. See, let me just explain this. So when it comes to the audit team, let's try to understand the audit team first. So what do you mean by audit team? Though we discussed it, let's try to understand this. See, audit team will comprise of various persons. One will be the partner, because one person has to sign the audit report. When the report will be completed, he has to sign the report. So he'll sign the audit report. And then there are various other members. So let me just call it as other members. Now, what are those other members? They can also be the partners in the CA firm, because in a CA firm, there could be various partners. So other members who are partners, so they can also be involved. Then there can be some managers, because it's a designation. Yeah, there could be some other staff persons, say some other chartered accountants, let me just call them as consultants. Okay. Different designation could be there. And there could be some interns. Interns are nothing but the articles. Again, it's a designation. Now, this engagement partner term we have used in the context of this particular audit team member. Please remember that all of these persons are the audit team members, because audit team comprises of all of these persons. All of these persons. Okay. So this person, we have called him as engagement partner. Means for this engagement, he is the partner. Understood? Yeah. Deepdas is asking, sir, audit partner means the partner from the same firm, or you are trying to say to no, same firm, huh? Same firm.
Sir,
Yes.
as the scale of businesses are growing globally and the technology is fast moving, sir,
Right.
a huge number of transactions are there. Is the auditor, the engaging auditor partner, the manager who is appointed, he himself fixes the technology in techniques need to be followed.
No, so in such a case, I can understand your question. See, this others will also involve some experts. And there will be one IT specialist. So he will be the one who will be taking care of this, who is going to support all the other team members as around some of those aspects. Okay, similarly, let's suppose taxation is a big challenge. So there will be one taxation specialist. So that's how it works. And this all thing has to be decided at the time of planning. Because if, let's suppose, you don't plan this, let's suppose you go for a bank audit, you understand that their IT systems are quite complex. You go there and you ask for the information. So how will the client produce the information? So they will say that these are the reports which are getting produced. But you don't understand how those reports are produced. You don't understand the systems. You don't understand the logics through which those reports are getting generated. And you keep asking irrelevant questions. So what will happen? One, the client will get irritated. Why? Because you lack that knowledge. Second, you will not be able to carry out your work in an efficient manner. Why? Because you lack the knowledge, you lack that skill set. So that's why at the time of planning, you should expect that all of these things are going to come. All of those challenges are going to come. So that's why you should plan such type of specialists. Okay, so you will plan these specialists. Clear?
And then, sir, consolidated financial statements will only be audited, or else standalone will be audited. Both of them.
Standalone, consolidated, both are audited. Both are audited. That again depends on the scope. Huh? What is the scope? Okay.
Can different auditors be engaged for that purpose? For audit, so one auditor for consolidated, and for every standalone, there can be different auditors for the same company.
You mean to say the holding company, is it?
Yeah. Yes, sir. For example, in a Tata Group, we have different.
Generally not. When it comes to the holding company, the company which is doing the consolidation. Okay, of course, let's suppose if there are a lot of companies which are getting consolidated, for subsidiaries, you can have different auditors. For joint ventures, you can have different auditors which are getting consolidated. But the holding company, okay, which will do the consolidation, which will prepare the standalone as well as its consolidated financial statements. Therein you find one auditor generally. Yeah. So that's how it works. Otherwise, it will be very, very inefficient on the part of the company. Let's try to imagine that situation. So a person who knows the company inside out, he is auditing the financial statements standalone, and then a new firm will come in who will audit the consolidated financial statements. So that will be very, very inefficient. So practically that doesn't happen. Okay, so then Nisarg is asking, sir, is there any limitation on how many audit reports a CA can give? See, of course, there are limitations, but as far as this limitations and all of those aspects are concerned, see, when it comes to the statutory audit, when it comes to the tax audit, again, depending on the type of scope that will have, it varies according to that. Okay. Tambeshwari is asking, sir, its subject is question theory or practical. So it's both. It's both. So I think you are trying to ask that whether the questions will be theory questions or practical. So it's going to be both. So that's what we have been discussing. Mohit is asking, sir, what is the meaning of audit planning is not being a discrete but an iterative? See, it's all about the discussion that we had, that it is something which is going to be ever evolving. And you should not think that this is something which is fixed and which you can just continuously follow as it is. So you just need to, keep evolving during the course of your audit as around a lot of things which are required to be done. Yeah. And of course, this is quite interlinked. This is quite interlinked. That is what it means. Preeti is asking, sir, in company, how many partners can sign the report? See, in a company, for an audit firm, one audit partner will sign the audit. Okay. All right. So any more questions? If you have. No, so I understand you're all done. Yeah, so are we all done? No more questions? Great. So I believe we are all done. So we don't have any questions. So I think Amar is asking about this paper pattern. Maybe you can just discuss this slightly later or maybe some other time when everybody is around. So that will be better to get into this paper pattern. So I understand we don't have any further questions around this topic. So before I just conclude this discussion, I would once again request that please keep revising all of these topics that we have discussed so far. Okay, because this is going to help you in respect of the further discussions that are going to happen. Okay, so thanks once again everyone for your time and once again for the wonderful participation that you've shown. So thanks so much. I think we can conclude our discussion now. Yes. Good night. Thanks.